Rain fell quietly over the dense alien forest. The air was thick with moisture, and every leaf shimmered like glass. The trees weren't like those on Earth. They were taller, darker, and seemed to whisper to each other through the wind. Inside this forest, a human soldier moved silently, one hand gripping a vine-covered branch, the other holding his pulse scanner. His name was Kieran. He wasn't a hero or a famous warrior. He was just a survivor of a battle gone wrong. 3 days ago, a surprise attack had wiped out his entire unit. He had been lucky, or maybe unlucky, to survive. His communicator was broken. No rescue would come. He had food for 2 more days and a few thermal patches. The forest was alien and deadly, but his training told him to keep moving, keep alert, and stay alive. While crossing a rocky ledge that overlooked a waterfall, he heard a sound. Not the rustling of leaves or the buzz of insects, but a low, sharp growl followed by a whimper. He stopped. Slowly, he crouched and scanned the slope below. There, hidden between rocks, was a creature unlike any he had ever seen. It was large, feline-like, but not exactly a cat. Its fur was white with strange black stripes that looked more like runes than natural patterns. Its eyes glowed dim gold, half closed in pain. One of its legs was bleeding badly and its breathing was shallow. Kieran didn't move. He had seen wild alien beasts before. Most were deadly. Some even hunted in pairs, playing dead to trap prey. But this one looked genuinely hurt. Its ribs were visible, its leg twisted unnaturally. Still, the golden eyes watched him, unblinking. He considered walking away. Helping a beast like that could get him killed. But something about the creature stopped him. It didn't look like a wild animal. It had a collar around its neck, something old, royal-looking, with symbols etched into the metal. This wasn't a wild predator. It belonged to someone. Kieran slowly lowered his scanner and raised both hands. He spoke softly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. "If you let me help, I might be able to stop the bleeding." The beast growled weakly, but didn't move. That was enough permission for Kieran. He climbed down carefully, every movement slow, every breath steady. As he reached the creature's side, it bared its teeth, but again, didn't strike. He pulled out a sterile wrap and began dressing the wound. The blood was dark purple, sticky and warm, but not too deep. It could heal if treated properly. "Who do you belong to?" Kieran whispered, glancing at the collar again. He didn't know that miles above him, in a palace made of crystal and obsidian, a powerful alien baroness was demanding her hunters to find her lost companion. That beast wasn't just a pet. It was her bonded guardian, trained since birth, sacred to her bloodline. Its disappearance had caused chaos in her court, but down in the forest, Kieran knew none of this. He only knew that the creature had stopped growling and was now breathing easier. Its golden eyes were still locked on his, but there was less fear in them. Night was falling fast. Kieran gathered wood and started a small hidden fire. He made sure the flames were low and covered the area with a heat-dampening cloth. He had done this before, many times during stealth missions. This time, though, it wasn't for him. It was for the injured beast lying beside him. As he sat beside the flickering fire, he looked at the animal again. The glow in its eyes reflected the flames, and for a moment, he felt something strange. A connection. Like the beast knew him or was trying to understand him. Kieran leaned back, watching the stars appear above the dark treetops. He didn't know what kind of world he had stepped into. He didn't know who or what would come looking for the beast. But for now, in this quiet part of the forest, he had made a choice. He had saved it. And somewhere in the night, something had noticed. Kieran woke to the sound of heavy breathing. The fire had turned to glowing embers, casting a soft red light over the clearing. The beast was awake now, fully alert. Its golden eyes didn't look weak anymore. They were sharp, watching him closely. Kieran didn't move too quickly. He knew the line between trust and danger was thin with animals, especially ones from other worlds. "You stayed," he said softly. The beast blinked once. Its leg was still wrapped, but it hadn't torn the bandage off during the night. That was a good sign. Kieran reached for his field pack and pulled out a ration bar. He took a small piece for himself and tossed a chunk near the creature. It sniffed the food, then slowly pulled it in with its paw and chewed. Kieran watched, with careful interest. This beast was no ordinary animal. It had intelligence in its gaze, not just survival instinct but awareness. As the early light filtered through the trees, the forest slowly came alive. Strange birds chirped in high-pitched tones and the leaves rustled like whispers of another language. He glanced at the creature again. It hadn't moved much, but it was clearly regaining strength. Kieran couldn't risk staying in one place too long, but he couldn't just leave it either. Not now. You're going to slow me down, he muttered. But if I leave you, you die. He sighed, stood up, and stretched. His joints popped from stiffness. It had been days without proper sleep or food. He walked over to the beast and reached for the collar again. The metal was cool, heavy, and engraved with a language he didn't recognize. He ran his fingers over it carefully. Then something strange happened. The collar pulsed. Just once. A faint glow shimmered over the engravings. The beast froze but didn't growl. Kieran stepped back. What was that? Far away in the Baroness's chamber, the same pulse triggered a glowing pattern on a tall crystal near her throne. The Baroness, tall and fierce, rose instantly. Her attendants scrambled as she stared at the signal. Her pet was alive. She didn't know who had touched the collar, but the signal had awakened for the first time since the creature went missing. She raised her hand. Prepare the sky raptors. We ride at once. Back in the forest, Kieran gathered his gear. He tied some thick leaves into makeshift supports and gently looped a strap under the beast's body. This is going to hurt, but we need to move. He expected a roar or resistance. Instead, the beast gave a short grunt and tried to rise. Its body trembled, but it managed to stay on its good legs. Kieran looped the strap over his shoulder and started walking slowly, guiding the creature through the underbrush. Every step was slow. The jungle was thick, filled with strange vines that coiled like snakes. Kieran had to cut through some of them with his survival blade. The beast walked beside him with heavy steps, breathing louder but steady. Hours passed. Kieran kept looking up at the sky through the trees. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe rescue, maybe trouble. But something in his gut kept him alert. They came upon a shallow stream. He let the beast drink first before filling his own canteen. You're a royal pet, aren't you? Kieran said to the creature. That collar, it's not just a decoration. The beast didn't answer, but the look in its eyes said enough. Somewhere above them, a group of sleek black ships had already entered the planet's atmosphere. The Baroness stood at the front of the lead ship, her eyes locked on the glowing trail her beast had unknowingly left behind. She wasn't coming alone, and she wasn't coming peacefully. Kieran and the beast continued walking through the forest, unaware that every step was leading them closer to a collision neither of them could imagine. But still he walked, and the beast walked with him. Their fates were now connected. The jungle air grew hotter as they moved deeper. Kieran's uniform clung to his skin with sweat, and the beast's breathing was growing heavier again. The injury had stopped bleeding, but each step was a strain. Kieran kept glancing at the sky. He didn't know why, but the forest felt heavier now, like something was watching them. He found a half-sunken cavern beneath a wide tree root. The entrance was hidden by ferns, and the inside was cool and dark. He helped the beast lay down on a soft patch of moss. The creature collapsed with a deep grunt, eyes half closed. Its body trembled from exhaustion, but it still hadn't lashed out. It trusted him. Somehow, without a word spoken, they understood each other. Kieran knelt beside the creature again and checked the bandages. He could feel its warmth radiating off its side, and for the first time he noticed a deep scar under the fur. Old, almost, healed. This beast had seen war before. He leaned back and pulled out his small datapad. The screen flickered, badly damaged from the crash. He tapped a few commands, trying to locate any signal or emergency beacon. The map was static. The radar, empty. But in the background, A small alert blinked silently. Unknown energy signature detected. Kieran frowned. It was coming from the beast, or more accurately, from the collar around its neck. Far above, on the descending fleet, the Baroness's ship moved with sharp precision. Inside, her voice echoed through the command deck. He has triggered the bond signal. My guardian is not with strangers by accident. This human touched the collar. I want him alive. Her elite hunters, armored in jet-black suits with glowing, red visors, stood in silence as the command uploaded into their systems. Target marked. No mistakes. Back on the surface, Kieran was still trying to understand the symbols on the collar. They shimmered again under the low light of the cavern, glowing slightly when he moved his fingers near them. The beast watched him with calm eyes, not afraid, not tense. Kieran wasn't just a stranger anymore, he was becoming something more. You're not just any animal, Kieran whispered. You're connected to someone powerful, aren't you? That's what this is. He didn't know the Baroness's name or status. He didn't know that this beast had been her bonded protector since her childhood. But he did know one thing. Someone would come for it, and maybe not with kind intentions. He stepped out of the cave, scanned the forest again, and froze. In the far sky, distant but growing closer, dark shapes broke through the clouds. Not natural. Not birds. Ships. His heart kicked. He rushed back into the cave and gently tapped the beast's side. We have to move. The creature looked up slowly, eyes narrowing, sensing the tension in his voice. It tried to rise, but the injury flared. Again, it growled in pain and sank back down. Kieran clenched his fists. He didn't have much time. If those ships were searching, and they scanned the forest, the heat signatures would give them away. He had to hide them. At least delay detection. He reached for his thermal blanket, draped it over the beast, and began activating a local field jammer from his damaged gear. It wouldn't last long, maybe half an hour, but it would block signals for a short time. He stared into the darkness beyond the cave and took a deep breath. Whoever's coming. I hope they're not like the ones who wiped out my unit. Because, if they were, he would fight. Injured, lost, outnumbered. None of that mattered now. This beast had trusted him, and he wasn't going to let anything take it away, not without a fight. The sound of engines rumbled faintly through the canopy. Kieran knelt just inside the cave entrance, eyes locked on the treetops. The field jammer's signal was holding, but it wouldn't last long. He looked back at the beast. Its breathing had stabilized, but the injury still hadn't fully healed. Its eyes remained half-closed, trusting him even while vulnerable. He wasn't sure when that trust had formed. Maybe it was the first time he bandaged the wound. Maybe it was the fire, or the food. But now they were tied together, not by words, but by something else. Something unspoken. Suddenly, a blast shook the ground. Dirt rained down from the cave ceiling. Kieran grabbed his rifle and rolled outside just in time to see a beam of blue light strike a distant cliffside. The jungle erupted in noise, birds scattering, animals screeching. The enemy wasn't searching anymore, they were flushing the forest. They're sweeping the area, he muttered. For you. He turned back to the beast. It was awake now, ears twitching, nose flaring. It sensed danger. Kieran could see its muscles tense as it tried to rise again. This time, despite the pain, it got to its feet. Wobbling, weak, but standing. Kieran moved fast. He grabbed vines and cut thick branches, quickly weaving together a crude sled. He attached it to his belt and motioned for the beast to lie down. At first it hesitated. Then it obeyed, lowering itself onto the structure. You're heavier than you look, Kieran whispered, teeth clenched, pulling with all his strength. He moved through the underbrush, dragging the sled along a narrow animal path. The sound of ships drew closer. The first scouting drone buzzed past overhead. It hovered, scanned briefly, then shot off. Kieran dropped behind a tree and held his breath. The jammer was losing power. He could feel it. A vibration through the ground, like the silence before a storm. Somewhere above, the Baroness had stepped aboard a drop shuttle. Her fingers tapped the railing as her eyes scanned the holographic map. Her hunters were closing in. Then something flickered. A blinking dot. A heat trace. Faint. Buried. Beneath layers of jungle but not gone. The Baroness smiled. "I've found you." On the ground, Kieran had pulled the beast behind a fallen trunk hidden beneath hanging vines and thick roots. His face was smeared with mud, his shirt torn and soaked in sweat. The creature let out a low growl, not from pain, but warning. It sensed movement. Kieran peered between the leaves. A shadow moved across the ground. Tall, armored, precise. One of them. Not a scout. A hunter. He held his breath. The figure moved slowly, scanning the trees with a long spear-like weapon that glowed at the tip. Its armor was smooth and black, with red veins pulsing like blood. The helmet had no eyes, just a smooth surface reflecting the jungle. It stopped. Kieran's hand reached for the small blade on his hip. He didn't move yet. He couldn't risk it, not with the beast exposed. The hunter stepped closer, one foot landing inches from the vines. Then the beast moved. It didn't roar or attack. It simply shifted, causing the vines to rustle. The hunter spun instantly and pointed the weapon. Kieran acted without thinking. He lunged. The blade sank into the hunter's side just beneath the armor plate. The figure staggered. The weapon discharged into the dirt, exploding in a flash of blue light. Kieran rolled away, grabbing the spear as it fell. The hunter collapsed. Dead. The beast dragged itself toward Kieran, growling weakly. He crouched beside it, panting, heart pounding. That was too close. But he knew it was only the beginning. More would come, stronger, smarter, and now he had killed one of them. The hunter's body lay still among the roots, its armor cracked where Kieran's blade had struck true. Kieran didn't waste time. He pulled the glowing spear from the ground and studied it. Alien tech, balanced, responsive. A weapon of a soldier, not a tracker. They weren't just here to recover the beast, they were here to eliminate whoever found it. He turned to the creature, which was now upright but trembling. It nudged his shoulder softly with its head. Kieran was surprised by the gesture. There was no panic in its golden eyes. It was steady, focused, as if it had seen this kind of violence before. "I know," Kieran said quietly. "We can't run anymore." The forest was no longer an option. They needed higher ground, better sight lines. Kieran had seen a cliffside on the scanner map before it broke. If they could make it there, they'd have a chance to signal a passing satellite or at least make a stand. He loaded the spear onto his back, secured his rifle, and began preparing the sled again. The beast refused to lie down this time. It took one step forward, limping but determined. Kieran nodded. "All right then. Let's walk together." Every few steps the beast would pause to breathe, but it never complained, never gave up. Kieran cut a path with his blade, constantly listening for any hums or clicks from drones. The forest, once alive with sound, had gone quiet again. That silence meant danger. In the skies above, the Baroness stared out the viewport of her dropship. The first hunter had not responded, her lip curled in disgust. She activated a command. Deploy 2 more. Sweep pattern. Bring the human alive, if possible. If not, bring my guardian. On the ground, Kieran and the beast reached a broken clearing. Trees had fallen here during a past storm, leaving jagged stumps and twisted branches. As they passed through, a sound echoed from the treetops. A low hum. Kieran's head snapped up. Drone. He grabbed the beast and pulled them both under a fallen tree trunk. The drone drifted above the clearing like a dark eye. It scanned once, twice, then paused. Kieran's fingers tensed around the stolen spear. If it fired, they were dead. Suddenly, the beast's body shimmered faintly. A soft pulse ran along its fur, starting at the collar and spreading across its skin. The drone's lights flickered. Then, it drifted away. Kieran stared at the beast in shock. "You jammed it. Somehow." The creature blinked slowly. Its breathing was still heavy, but its presence felt stronger now. The collar had done something. Maybe it was defensive. Maybe it was calling for help. But if it was calling, who would answer? By the time they reached the base of the cliff, the sky had turned orange. Night would come soon. Kieran found a narrow path winding up the rocks and helped the beast climb slowly. They stopped at a high ledge shielded on 3 sides, a perfect spot to rest. Or fight. Kieran knelt, setting up a small reflector beacon. He didn't know if it would work, but he had to try. The beast curled beside him, close enough to share its warmth. It didn't fear him anymore. If anything, it looked at him like a companion, like an equal. For a brief moment there was peace. Then the night broke open. A flash in the sky. A beam of red light tore through the trees below, scorching everything in its path. Kieran stood instantly, aiming the alien spear down toward the forest. 2 hunters moved like shadows through the smoke, scanning, searching. "They're not stopping," he muttered. He turned to the beast. "If you've got any more tricks, now's the time." But the beast was already rising. Its wounds still bled, but something had changed. Its eyes were brighter, its stance more solid. It walked to the edge of the cliff and let out a low, sharp growl that echoed into the trees below. The hunters stopped moving, as if they had heard something ancient, something they feared. Kieran didn't understand why, but the jungle suddenly did. The growl that came from the beast wasn't just sound, it was vibration, pressure, a low-frequency force that rippled through the jungle air. Trees trembled. Leaves shivered. Even Kieran felt it in his bones, like the earth itself was responding. The 2 hunters at the base of the cliff froze. Their visors flickered. They looked up but didn't advance. They weren't afraid of Kieran. They were afraid of the beast beside him. Kieran stepped back slowly, eyes locked on the creature. "You've done that before." The beast didn't answer, but it lowered its head calmly, as if calling the world to silence again. Whatever power it held wasn't just physical, it was something more, something bonded to status, legacy, and maybe even fear. Kieran looked down at the alien spear in his hand. He didn't feel like a soldier anymore. He felt like a guardian, or a witness, to something ancient. The standoff didn't last long. The hunters slowly backed into the jungle shadows, disappearing from view. Kieran wasn't foolish enough to believe they'd given up. "They're regrouping," he muttered, "or waiting for orders." Night settled across the cliffside. The stars above were distant, cold and unmoving. Kieran wrapped the beast in a thermal shield and lit a small fire behind the stone wall to keep them hidden from above. "You know, if I'd left you back there, none of this would have happened." The beast looked at him, eyes full of quiet response. There was no regret, only understanding. Kieran sighed. He leaned back against the rock and stared at the sky. He missed the stars of Earth. The war had pulled him light years from home. He never expected to end up saving a creature no human had ever seen before, let alone bond with it. He didn't know the creature's name. He didn't even know if it had one. But he trusted it more than any soldier he'd ever served with. Orbit, the Baroness stood tall as her final command vessel began to descend. The signal had stabilized. Her guardian's location was fixed. But the human's presence had changed everything. Her advisors begged for caution. "He has formed a partial bond," one of them said. "It's not complete, but the guardian is responding." This has never happened with an outsider. The Baroness remained silent. She walked to the window and looked down at the glowing forest below. Then she whispered, "If the bond has chosen, then I must see it with my own eyes." She ordered the shuttle to land alone. On the cliff, dawn began to peek through the edge of the trees. Kieran rose first. He checked the scanner again. It was useless, but his instincts weren't. The jungle was too still. Then came a sound, not the harsh hum of hunter ships, but something softer. He looked up. A single vessel descended, sleek, black with blue engines that glowed silently. It stopped mid-air above the ridge and hovered. From beneath, a platform extended slowly. A figure stood on it, tall, graceful, cloaked in royal silks that shimmered with gold. Kieran stood still, his grip tightening around the spear. The beast beside him didn't growl. It stepped forward, limping slightly, and lifted its head. The figure stepped onto the stone, her boots silent. Her face was pale lavender, marked with fine lines of royal paint. Her eyes glowed like amber flames. She looked at Kieran, then at the beast. She didn't speak. Neither did Kieran. The beast walked toward her, stopped halfway, and looked back at Kieran. The Baroness's voice broke the silence. Soft but powerful. "You saved my guardian." Kieran didn't answer at first. He looked at the beast, then back at her. "I didn't know what it was," he said finally. "I just knew it was hurt." The Baroness stepped closer. Her eyes flicked to the spear in his hand, the dried blood on his shoulder, the exhaustion in his face. "You fought my hunters. They came to kill me." She nodded slowly, then looked at her guardian again. The creature limped forward and pressed its head gently to her hand. She held it with both palms. Then it stepped back and walked to Kieran. It sat beside him. The Baroness stared for a long moment. Something had changed, and she couldn't ignore it. The beast sat between them, its body still weak but its presence commanding. The Baroness didn't move closer. She stood tall, her cloak rustling softly in the wind. Behind her the shuttle hovered silently, its lights casting a pale glow across the ledge. Kieran kept one hand resting lightly on the spear, not as a threat, but a reminder. He wasn't sure what would happen next. The Baroness spoke again, her voice quieter now. "You don't understand what that creature is to my people. It is more than a companion. It is legacy, honor, blood." Kieran's eyes didn't waver. "I didn't know any of that when I found it. I just saw something that needed help." The Baroness nodded once, slowly. "And yet, it has chosen you." The moment was heavy. Even the breeze seemed to still, as if the jungle was waiting to see what came next. The beast looked at both of them, its golden eyes calm but aware. Kieran lowered his weapon. He stepped slightly aside, giving the beast space to choose again. It didn't hesitate. It walked to him and leaned against his side, its head brushing against his chest. Kieran didn't flinch. He let his hand rest on the thick fur. The Baroness exhaled softly, not in anger, but in something closer to grief. "It should not be possible," she whispered. "The guardian bond is sacred, passed only through ceremony and bloodline, yet you—" She stepped forward. "Do you even know what it means?" Kieran shook his head. "I don't need to. It trusted me. That's enough." The Baroness studied him in silence. She was trained to be above emotion, but something in her expression cracked just slightly. A flicker of loss, or maybe awe. "You've risked your life for something that isn't yours. You killed my hunters. You interfered with my bloodline. By our law, I should order your execution." Kieran's jaw clenched. "But I won't," she added. She looked at her beast once more. "Because if it stands with you, then you've earned its loyalty in a way no royal ritual ever could." She turned slightly, her gaze shifting to the jungle far below. "My people will not accept this. They'll see you as a threat. An outsider who stole what could not be claimed." "I didn't steal it," Kieran said quietly. "I saved it." The beast made a deep rumbling sound, soft but filled with weight, as if it was agreeing with every word. The Baroness glanced at her shuttle. "You can't remain here. More will come, not just hunters, warships, political enforcers. My council will demand I bring the guardian back, alone." Kieran's eyes narrowed. "Then what are you here to do?" She hesitated, then said something he didn't expect. "I came to see who was worth defying an empire." She reached into her cloak and produced a small crystal disc, glowing faintly, with blue light. She placed it gently on a nearby rock. "This contains my override signature. It will mark your presence as protected. For now." Kieran frowned. "Why help me?" The Baroness looked away for a moment, then answered without emotion. "Because the guardian chose, and I refuse to be the one who breaks that bond." She took a final step closer and met Kieran's eyes. "If you ever enter my space again without warning, I may not be this generous. He nodded. Fair. The Baroness turned and walked back toward her shuttle. As the platform lifted her into the air, she looked down one last time. Her gaze wasn't cruel or angry. It was something else. Something ancient and unresolved. Then she disappeared into the sky. Kieran stood in the fading light with the beast at his side. The jungle was silent again. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in days it felt like he had a choice again, not as a soldier, but as the one chosen by the guardian of a royal bloodline. Kieran watched the Baroness's ship vanish into the clouds, the sound of its engines fading like a storm moving far away. The jungle was still again. The fire beside him had turned to glowing coals. The beast, his companion now, lay stretched beside the warmth, eyes half closed in peace. He knelt down slowly and ran his hand through its thick fur. The wound on its leg had started to scab over. The creature breathed evenly now. It was healing. And for the first time since the ambush that had destroyed his unit, Kieran allowed himself to sit still and breathe without looking over his shoulder. He looked at the crystal disc the Baroness had left. It shimmered with layers of coded light. He didn't fully understand how it worked, but one thing was clear. It was protection. As long as it stayed active, patrols from her empire wouldn't attack him. But the Baroness's warning still echoed in his mind. This wouldn't last forever. She had bent the rules, but not broken them. Sooner or later, someone with more power or less patience would come. He had two options: keep running or use this. Time to prepare. Kieran didn't see himself as a symbol or a warrior of fate. He was just a man who refused to leave a living thing to die alone. But somehow that simple act had shifted the balance of an entire alien hierarchy. He stood and looked down at the valley beyond the ridge. There were mountains in the distance, their tops hidden by mist. Somewhere beyond them was a broken satellite tower. He'd seen it in old maps during training. If he could reach it, he might be able to reconnect to the long-range communication network. It was a risky journey, but worth it. He turned to the beast. You ready to move again? The creature stood slowly. It limped, but not as much as before. It walked up beside him and bumped his shoulder gently, as if answering with a quiet yes. Kieran packed his gear, now lighter than ever. He carried only what he needed: his rifle, the alien spear, the data crystal, and the trust of the most powerful creature he'd ever encountered. As they descended the ridge, the jungle opened before them like a path waiting to be written. Birds scattered in the trees. Small, animals watched from the shadows. Even the wind seemed to shift direction, guiding them forward. Behind them, the place of battle, fire, and blood faded into silence. Ahead of them, the unknown stretched out like a challenge. He didn't know what he would find at the tower. He didn't know if Earth Command would hear his call. He didn't know if the alien empire would try to take the beast back by force. But he knew one thing. They were together now. And that bond, earned through survival, pain, and trust, was stronger than any royal decree. As the sun broke over the horizon, casting gold over the wet leaves and distant mountains, Kieran smiled to himself. Let them come, he whispered. Beside him, the beast growled softly, not in anger but in agreement, and together they disappeared into the green heart of the alien world, ready for whatever came next.